Luxembourg is today a tiny country, more precisely the second smallest in the European Union. Nevertheless, it is considered one of the three capitals of the Union and is also home to the European Court of Justice. This is not a coincidence, as it highlights the important role of the once very powerful Grand Duchy in Europe. Despite much larger neighbors like Germany, France, and Belgium, the small country has managed to maintain its independence to this day, but at a high cost. Luxembourg was once much larger and included numerous territories and regions in the surrounding area. But why did Luxembourg lose much of its former territory? How did it manage to preserve its independence to this day? And what makes it one of the wealthiest countries in Europe today? We will take a closer look at all these exciting questions in today's video. Enjoy! First, let's take a look at the history of Luxembourg's origin. Luxembourg emerged in the early Middle Ages as a county. More precisely, in the year 950, when Siegfried I acquired the Luxembourg, the castle that would later give the country its name. His descendants would later call themselves Counts of Luxembourg. It was then long a part of the Holy Roman Empire, but gained importance and power over the centuries. Its strategic location in the heart of Europe made it a coveted and often contested territory. To avoid being swallowed up by surrounding counties, the motto was expansion. Luxembourg was able to steadily expand its territory and eventually sought power in the Holy Roman Empire. In 1308, the Luxembourgers reached the height of their power when Henry of Luxembourg was elected emperor of the entire Holy Roman Empire of the German nation. His son John was also crowned King of Bohemia, today's Czech Republic, 2 years later. The dynasty's successors were repeatedly emperors of the entire empire, which brought Luxembourg a period of prosperity and power, even elevating it to a duchy. However, the rapid rise was followed by a swift fall. In 1337, the ruler Sigismund died childless, which marked the end of the dynasty and the independence of Luxembourg. It initially fell to the House of Burgundy, and later, like many other territories, to the Habsburgs. Though Luxembourg was able to retain a certain level of autonomy, it was mostly under foreign rule. This made it a pawn for foreign powers that nibbled away at its borders bit by bit. Due to its central location, Luxembourg was involved in almost all major European wars. For instance, in the 30 Years' War, after which Luxembourg had to cede numerous towns and districts to France. It was also repeatedly threatened by France later on. One especially expansionist emperor was Louis XIV, the Sun King. He managed to briefly capture the capital of Luxembourg and occupy the entire country, but was ultimately forced to return it under pressure from Spain. However, Spanish rule did not last forever, and after the War of Spanish Succession, it fell to the Austrians. You can already see the constant back and forth of power relations. For Maria Theresa of Austria, however, Luxembourg was a pet project. She initiated extensive reforms to improve the operation of institutions and increase state revenues. But even she could not prevent the small country from soon being threatened again by the French. Around the year 1800, France was more expansionist than ever before. Napoleon was intent on spreading the French Revolution across Europe and deposing the monarchs of Europe. One of his first actions was the invasion of Luxembourg by revolutionary troops. They wanted to liberate Luxembourg, but this ultimately meant no independence for the Luxembourgers, only foreign rule from Paris. As a result, Luxembourgers pinned their hopes on a swift end to Napoleon's reign. They hoped to achieve full independence during the subsequent Congress of Vienna. But as so often before, things turned out very differently. The victorious powers wanted a strong buffer state between France and Prussia, as well as the German states. This buffer state was to be the Kingdom of the Netherlands. William I of Orange-Nassau was thus given, in addition to Holland, the former Austrian Netherlands. The Duchy of Luxembourg was elevated to a Grand Duchy and declared an independent state, but was immediately handed over to the King of the Netherlands as personal property to belong to him and his rightful heirs personally and forever. It also had to cede territory to Prussia. This was not true independence. Luxembourgers, of course, disliked this arrangement, as they had little in common with the Dutch. The country was divided between a German-speaking and a French-speaking part. Dutch was now to be taught in schools, and the administration was to be restructured according to the Dutch model. A similar situation occurred with neighboring Belgians, who were also assigned to the Dutch at the Congress of Vienna. Discontent grew there too, and in 1830, the Belgian Revolution erupted. The discontent stemmed particularly from the southern, predominantly Catholic and French-speaking provinces in Belgium. Soon, Luxembourg joined the revolution as well. Especially the western areas, where mainly Walloons lived, were culturally and linguistically closely linked to the Belgian insurgents. However, while Belgium fought for and won full sovereignty and independence, Luxembourg once again saw a different outcome. It was divided once again. The Treaty of London in 1839 confirmed the division of Luxembourg. The western, predominantly French-speaking part was awarded to Belgium. The smaller, predominantly German-speaking eastern part was again confirmed as an independent Grand Duchy, but remained in a personal union with the Netherlands. This meant that Luxembourg, although gaining more powers and being allowed to join the German Confederation, remained under foreign rule. Additionally, it had now lost a large part of its state territory, leaving it further weakened. It was clear that Luxembourg would hardly be able to defend itself against further expansionist ambitions of its neighboring states. Therefore, soon another treaty established the permanent neutrality of Luxembourg. This neutrality was guaranteed by the great powers of Europe: Prussia, Austria, France, Great Britain, and Russia. They pledged to respect and protect Luxembourg's territorial integrity from then on. This offered Luxembourgers some security in a time when the balance of power in Europe was extremely fragile. However, as we know, neutrality is only as strong as the willingness and ability of the guaranteeing powers to respect and enforce it. Nevertheless, Luxembourg managed to consolidate its position throughout the 19th century and even gain full sovereignty. In 1890, King William III of the Netherlands died without a male heir, and so the next relatives, the Dukes of Nassau-Weilburg, ascended the ducal throne in Luxembourg. Adolf of Nassau became Grand Duke, and Luxembourgers were once again fully independent. As I have already hinted, neutrality would not be permanently successful. This was particularly evident during the First and Second World War, when Luxembourg was invaded and occupied by Germany twice. The traumatic experiences of occupation influenced Luxembourg's later role in the unification of Europe. Additionally, the experiences of the Second World War in particular led to a departure from the traditional policy of neutrality. Luxembourg became a founding member of the United Nations, NATO, and later the European Communities, strengthening its role and influence on the international stage. The guiding principle was to be part of a larger union of states to guarantee its territorial security. The small state benefited enormously from European unification. Luxembourg City, the capital, became one of the 3 official seats of the European Commission and the European Court of Justice, underscoring the country's significance in European politics. The open borders within the Schengen area, named after the Schengen Agreement, also signed in Luxembourg, symbolized the overcoming of traditional territorial boundaries. The location was chosen symbolically in a country that had often struggled with shifting borders. Not only politically, but also economically, Luxembourg became a major player in Europe. The early strategic decision to focus on the financial services sector leveraged Luxembourg's geographic location and multilingual population to its advantage. This enabled the country to attract global investors and large financial institutions, making it incredibly wealthy. Today, Luxembourg is an example of a country that has turned its limitations, such as its small size and limited natural resources, into advantages. By focusing on services, especially in the financial sector, and by playing an active role in the EU and other international organizations, Luxembourg has achieved disproportionate significance and is now indispensable in Europe.